Okay, I want to do First Timothy, uh, page two. I call it page chapter two. It's the verse 1 through 4. Uh, that's the one all the free will people use. The guy wants everybody to be saved. Um, uh, and it doesn't mean that. It doesn't. Um, but I want to go over it here. I will do it in English. Uh, the Greek's very simple. Um, but so the thing about Greek is that you have to understand the metaphors and the figures of speech. And I gave up on Greek for a long time because I first started studying under Dr. Robert Morey. You learn to read the words and you just make it equivalent to an English word in your mind. You read the word and it equates to this English word. Well, you might as well just read it in English. And I've even heard the great Dr. White, who's supposedly be a great Greek professor, and he reads this and he misses it. And it's because I don't think he studies the figures of speech. And I should have had a page pulled up because I'm going to show you something. But you can look it up. If you don't believe me, I'll tell you in a minute. So he'll reads this, and he says, "Give supplication for the kings and all that are in authority, that we may lead a tranquil life. For it is acceptable to God to have all men saved and come to the knowledge of truth." And so what he'll do is he'll go up and say, "Yeah, see, pray for Nero, the kings and the governors of the state." And then that's the context, and you come down here, so that means all kinds of people to be saved. Well, no, it's kind of true, but it's not true. And of course, the free will people think it means literally all people. God wants all people. But no, you have to know these metaphors, just like we say the word cool. Okay? So someone 2,000 years later, I can see them fighting over something we say. Well, that doesn't mean nifty. You know, that means he was cold. And the word cold. We could use the word cold to mean distant, right? And someone 2,000 years ago goes and says, no, I mean, it means they were freezing from the weather. So the metaphors are all over the place. In the Greek too. And that's where the language is. That's where the language is. And I first heard a man say this, because every time I heard someone explain this, I thought, even James White, I'm like, that ain't right. That's not right. And I heard a man, Jim Brown, explain this. And it went, oh, boom, boom, there it is. And that's the Greek. That's studying the Greek. And he got me diving hard into Greek again. And boy, now things start to make sense. But even the grammatical force will tell you. So if you know the metaphors and you know the grammatical force, it'll tell you what this means. And that starts back on page 1. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but if you go through it, this is Paul telling Timothy, who's, I guess, the head pastor over in Ephesus. We've got a problem, Houston. We have people coming in here. You can read it for yourself. People preaching falsely. People that have made themselves an authority, right? They're making themselves out to be authority and they're preaching wrong. And I, Paul, understand because I was once a blasphemer. And by the grace of God, he turned me around, right? And now I want these people to be corrected so I don't have to throw them out of the church like I did these two guys. Okay? There's your force going into the second page, second chapter, whatever you want to call it. Now, therefore, because we have this problem of these people, therefore, the first thing we got to do, it says first off, that's a funny wording of it, but it says the first thing we got to do of this problem is pray for Nero. It's dumb. And the governors for our false preachers? No. No. Absolutely not. This word king's basilia, and I'll tell you something in a minute, that's a metaphor. We're called priests and kings in the church. And you can look that up. People that know the Bible kind of know that. It's those people that they're having a problem with. He's using a metaphor for kings and the ones in authority. They're trying to make themselves an authority, and they're preaching. We have to pray for them. It's not Nero. Nero was killing Christians. We have to pray for those people. Those are the kings and the ones in authority, the ones that are preaching falsely, so that they can be saved. Who will all men, who wants all of them to be saved. And sozo just means to be rescued, to come from one place to another, saved from the false preaching, and to come to the knowledge of the truth. Preach the truth. It's the people in the church. It's not the world. And it's not really all kinds of men. Of course, there's all kinds of men in the church. That's what it's about. That's the grammatical force. That's the metaphor. Okay, and then, because there's one God who himself, now here's a verse in Greek. Boy, I've tried to translate this sucker so many times, and it's really hard. I don't think it can be done. I've read, you look in several Bibles, and it says all different kinds of things. But let's see here. Preacher, who himself gave him a ransom for all the martyrs, and it's the word martyrs in here. He gave him a ransom for those people, the martyrs, the ones testifying, the preachers preaching falsely. God gave himself for us, the church. So act right, straighten up, fix this, so that we can lead a tranquil life and not be pulling our hair out from these preachers that he's in charge of. The whole thing makes sense now. It's not about God wants to save the whole world. Well, it's just dumb. The free will people don't get it, and the Calvinists don't either, like James White, because he didn't know the metaphor. He didn't look at the grammatical force, the context. So the Calvinists are just stuck to their tradition just as much as the free will people. And they're not reading carefully, and they're not studying metaphors. Now, I should have had it pulled up. But if you go into Strong's and McClintock Cyclopedia, and Mr. Brown taught me this, why I wasn't reading that before, I just got lazy. If you go in there, and you can search Strong and McClintock Cyclopedia online, and you can look at it for free. It's like a $900 volume set, but you can look it for free online, McClintock's and Strong Cyclopedia, and you go into the K volume, Kings for Basilia, and it'll tell you right down mid the page or so, and it'll list 1 Timothy 2:2 or 2:1 through 4 or 2:2. It'll specifically list this verse right here under Basilia, and it'll say, I think it says, Basilia, Kings, a term used to designate a leader amongst peers. It's exactly what it says. I think I'm quoting it pretty closely. You can look it up for yourself. So when you study the linguistics and the cyclopedias about the language and the metaphors, it even tells you right there. That's what it is. This isn't Nero. It's not Nero. It's the kings and the priests in the church and the ones in authority. It's the whole context. James White missed it. Sorry, but he did. And it's not the whole world. It's the people in the church. It's what the whole letter's about. The whole letter is about the church and correcting doctrine. It's called part of the pastoral epistles, 1 Timothy, 2 Timothy, and Titus. It's what it's about. People talk about, well, you got to look at the context. Yeah, you do. But you got to know a little bit about Greek metaphors too. So, man, Once you understand that, the light bulb goes on, and you know what it's saying. But of course, the free will people are going to stick to their free will. They don't. You can't. They don't care. And the Calvinists won't care either. They're going to stick to their tradition. But for those brothers and sisters, that know the truth when they hear it, they'll go, yeah. They'll be shaking their head when they listen to me say this. And now the whole thing will make sense to them. So, man, I've been really wanting to make this video for a long time. And so, well, I don't know what else to say. Something I was going to say, but I forgot. But that's it. That's 1 Timothy chapter 2, chapter 1 and 2.